Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now I like to think of this graphics card as the GTX 480 for professionals. You'd have to have been a professional at something to be able to afford this back in 2010, that's for sure. And at $1,200 at launch, the Quadro 4000 was a Fermi card that used the same GF100 GPU found inside Nvidia's top of the range consumer card. It was cut down in terms of everything, including core count, but this old thing has 2 gigs of GDDR5 and comes all wrapped up inside a single slot package that's powered by a solo 6-pin connection. I imagine we're going to be in for a very warm gaming experience, to say the least. Of course, this Quadro 4000 was never designed for gaming, and it made no sense to buy it for that. Certainly not at more than double the price of the regular 480, that's for sure. These days, both cards can be found at similar prices, and it's very common to find these inside old workstation systems, the likes of which flood eBay every day. Now don't confuse this with the more capable M4000 or P4000, because if you do, you'll be most disappointed. I found this very version inside an old pre-built, and as I write and read this script, it's already in its new home, having helped pay towards a GPU upgrade. I was in two minds about posting this video because, as you'll see, most modern games are off the table, but I did come across a couple of surprises, so let's get into it and have a little bit of a laugh at the Quadro's expense. I think what we'll do now is play a game of Will It Launch, starting with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. So, will this one launch? No it won't. Battlefield 2042 is up next, and it's a promising start, but ultimately, no, it won't launch. What about Dead Space 2023, the remake of the classic? Again, a good start, the game sort of pops open, but no luck here. Now, Fortnite did fire up and it gave us a driver warning rather than an immediate error, and surprisingly this actually did launch. Now, thanks to the game's inbuilt performance mode, which was added a few updates ago, it will run at 1080p with close to 60 FPS. Now, we're playing at native 1080p here, so 100% res scale, though if you want to exceed that 60 frames per second target, then you could adjust the 3D res accordingly, and this is better than what I thought the Quadro would be capable of. The next one I tried in my Epic game library was Crysis Remastered, and we're back to not launching here. This didn't even open, it just the launch button just disappeared and nothing happened, so yeah. Cyberpunk 2077 straight out flatlined, which is nothing I didn't expect. In Red Dead Redemption 2, it took a lot of time thinking about whether it was going to launch. The Rockstar launcher sort of said loading for about 2 minutes. I've cut this footage down quite significantly, and then weirdly enough it switched to exit game, so the game was running somewhere. I don't know where, certainly not on my PC. In Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, the Definitive Edition, another Rockstar game now, well, this one actually ran 720p. The visual sacrifices we've had to make here pretty much means that anything that was added graphics-wise to the Definitive Edition has now sort of disappeared with the lower graphical settings. That's not really a problem for me because I prefer the look of the original game, and I'd certainly recommend playing the original game on this hardware instead of the Definitive Edition, which is going to run comparatively much worse. So yeah, play the original San Andreas, it's a better game anyway. But the Definitive Edition will run on this card, so that's nice to know, I guess. Now, in Apex Legends, we had to make some serious sacrifices. I started off with a base resolution of 720p, and then I chose the adaptive resolution target option. I enabled that and set it to 100 FPS, so I asked the game basically to try and target 100 FPS by dynamically scaling the resolution, and the best it could do was 30. I didn't expect it to hit 100 for a second, so I guess this result is actually acceptable because there is some level of playability here. I was able to wipe out a few enemies, but when everyone else is playing at least 60, I have to assume anyway, yeah, it's not going to be the best, but surprisingly the Quadro could handle this one. As you can see though, it is getting very warm, and I didn't dare overclock the card, or I tried to first of all, but it quickly shot up to 90 degrees and carried on creeping up, so I just left things at stock and let the single slot cooler do its best. Elden Ring ran wonderfully. Of course it didn't, this crashed straight away. Forza Horizon 5 did the same thing. We actually got a bit of a warning and we could ignore that warning, and I thought maybe the game would start, but no, it just lacks modern APIs that these games need. Counter-Strike Global Offensive, of course, ran just fine. I chose 720p here. I think we could have got away with 1080p and still hit 60 FPS, but I went with 720p just to be sure. And this actually improved the 1.1% lows. I do think, though, the CPU was carrying this quite a bit. If we didn't have the i3 in the system, then it would definitely be more of a struggle. I've actually switched to the i3-13100F, which is a lower end part than the i5 I normally use, because I think it makes more sense when testing these lower end cards. You could probably stick a Pentium in this system and the GPU would still be the main bottleneck, but I think going forward, cards under a certain price point, say like £200 or whatever, I'm going to test with the i3. It's not really what I could call a low-end part because it is very capable, to be honest. 4 cores and 8 threads. I've never seen such a powerful quad-core CPU before. But the subject here is, of course, the Quadro, and although it can play CSGO, I do think the processor is what we should be thanking mostly. Now, GTA 5 surprised me quite a bit here on the Quadro. I actually started off with 720p, and this was a bit of a I thought it was going to run terribly, so I went with 720p, and it turns out I could have gone much higher than this because we were averaging well above 60 with this resolution and the lowest settings. I chose the lowest or normal settings because of the power that the card lacks and, of course, the VRAM, which is 2 gigs. Not ideal for most games these days. GTA 5 is a bit older though, and that means that we could actually crank things up to 1080p as well. This will actually still average somewhere around 60 FPS. It's actually quite impressive. I didn't think this would be possible for a second, so that's nice to know. If you find one of these cheap cards and all you want to play is GTA 5, which some of you might want to, you could do so with pretty respectable frame rate numbers. Marvel Spider-Man Remastered? Yeah, no chance. So let's move on to our final game, which was again quite surprising, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt with its next-gen patch. Now, as you can imagine, we are limited to the lowest settings, 1024x768 resolution as well. I don't know how this is going to look after it's been processed and uploaded. A blurry mess is my guess. But overall, the frame rate was higher than I thought, 24, 25 FPS a lot of the time. Water is quite intensive in this one, so this is probably the lower end of the frame rate spectrum here. I did see 30 on occasion, which was nice to see, but for the most part, yeah. Is it going to be playable? Not really, but there we go. The Quadro 4000 in action, not to be confused with more powerful Quadro 4000 cards. I hope you've enjoyed this one. I'm sorry for making your eyeballs suffer. If you did enjoy it, however, be sure to leave a like, leave a dislike if you didn't, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and hopefully I'll see all of you in the next one.